Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch Project podcast. First podcast of 2021, January 3rd, and it's almost 11 o'clock p.m. where I'm at. Anyway, tonight's podcast is going to be focusing on this weird revelation of the method and how good fiction reveals truth sometimes better than just trying to figure out reality itself. So primarily, I'm making this podcast. It came up because I was binge watching Star Wars, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, the 2 animated series, and the 3 prequel movies that George Lucas made starting in the late 90s. And the reason I went to watch that stuff is because I just needed an escape. I needed to get away from even analyzing all the crap that's going on. It was just a little bit too much, and I definitely like my fantasy sometimes. I know that I don't like to confuse fantasy with reality. So I'm able to definitely distinguish the two. A lot of people in this world seem to have a fantasy about what this world is really about, and they can't deal with the reality of it. But that's not what I'm talking about. I just needed an escape, intentional. So I didn't want to analyze the news anymore. I didn't want to analyze what the hell was going on because I just felt burned out. So I started watching the prequel movies, which weren't my favorite. I mean, episodes 4, 5, and 6, the George Lucas trilogy from the 70s and the early 80s, was really the Star Wars that I grew up with, and it was obviously my favorite. But then, we had no Star Wars for a long time, and the prequels movies came out, and really the terrible episodes 7, 8, and 9 that J.J. Abrams made with Kathleen Kennedy, which almost completely destroyed the franchise of Star Wars, were so bad that you can go back and watch the prequels now if you've seen that atrocity, and the prequels actually look much better. At least they have a core plot that, while there could have been some better acting that went on in the prequels, and it could have been some, plot holes that were created could have been avoided if George Lucas hadn't been surrounded by yes people probably back then. And, so there were some things that could have been better, but the core plot and this whole Hegelian dialectic that the movie, the fictional story of Star Wars reveals, is fascinating to watch, and it's a way to learn how this whole thing and how of world control and manipulation and deception and false choices and how it all works. And I don't think that I've ever seen or read or witnessed any piece of fiction that reveals this better than Star Wars, especially in the prequel and Clone War era. Now, so tonight I'm going to talk about the prequel movies, Clone Wars, which was the animated series that Disney screwed up and canceled, but then in 2020 they finished it and gave us season 7, which concluded it, and they didn't screw that up. And then the Clone Wars animated series, once you get used to the animation, is actually better than the prequel movies. It's not a cartoon or an animated series for children, really. It really contains a lot of adult content and plays on your emotions and gets you pulled into the story. It's well voice acted, and it's just all the way around a masterpiece of Star Wars storytelling. And then you have Star Wars Rebels, which was a bit toned down from Clone Wars, but continues. And there's an important part of Rebels that I'm going to connect to tonight that reveals how all this is done. So if you're into all this stuff if you know things like what's going on, and you know about the basically all the manipulation and corrupted information and fake news that's been thrown at us constantly, and this year 2020 is probably the revelation of the method on steroids. They literally tell you show you the truth, blended in with mixed messages and gaslighting and information that you're told on how to behave, which makes absolutely no sense with reality of the situation that you can analyze when you're studying all this stuff. And Hegelian dialectic kind of does this kind of a disservice when you try to explain to people what's going on. That is a very common thing that people have talked about on YouTube and other places. Oh, by the way, my website is overwatchproject.com, and I prefer if you listen to this on Spreaker, where I'm posting it, and it'll pass on to YouTube, I know. So if you're a YouTube user, please also go to overwatchproject.com, use my referral link, sign up on BitChute, Library, Odyssey, or whatever other platforms you can find that are alternatives. But really, I love BitChute, which I'll be also mentioning part of in this podcast. And just sign up there and get used to a richer, better. They are trying to improve BitChute, and it doesn't really censor anybody, and that's what's important nowadays. So back to the topic. So when people talk about Hegelian dialectics, they kind of give you like this very simple explanation that it's like two false choices that someone or a group of people doing manipulation on like a society is kind of causing a false dichotomy, a duality that's fake, and because no matter which side you choose, both sides end up at the exact same ending, which is where the manipulators wanted you to end up in the first place. There is, I'm going to try to put links in the description section of this podcast tonight. So if you're on Spreaker, or if you're on BitChute, or if unfortunately you're still on the YouTuber, there will be links down below that you can check out some of this stuff. But there is a couple web pages I found. One is from a website called Esoteric Awakening, and it's a very interesting article called The Sociopath, the Empath, and the Apath. Now, really, it should be like the Psychopath, Empath, and Apath, because sociopath doesn't quite deal with the level of evil that sociopaths are just people that are a certain type of emotionless or don't have a deep connection or conscious reaction to certain things. It doesn't mean that they choose to do evil. A psychopath is a sociopath that does evil. So really that should be the title. But the article is fascinating because of the fact that it kind of breaks down the same kind of thing that I've been seeing, which is basically the evil people controlling the world, the sheeple, which are the apaths, or people that are apathetic, that enable them, and then the empaths, or the people who are not psychos that want to rule the world. They just want to be free, left alone, and they kind of understand what's going on, and they're not fooled by psychopaths. And if they are fooled by them, not for very long, or not for forever. We do have a little inner voice or some type of intuition that tells us when we're being manipulated, and eventually we do figure it out. Then the other web page is from this unityprocess.com site, and it's called The Trivium's Evil Twin, Hegel's Dialectic. This is a fascinating article because it actually uses Star Wars as the example. And this is what's so fascinating about what really inspired me to do this podcast. You don't get it from the prequels, but when you watch the Clone Wars, 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, all the way to the conclusion, the story is so well told that now keep in mind, Star Wars fans, I hope I'm not giving out any spoilers here, because if you don't know the basic story of Star Wars, I don't know what rock you've been living under. But basically, the whole thing with the prequels, episode 1, 2, and 3, the Clone Wars, and part of the Star Wars Rebels animated series, which ends before Rogue One, and then you have A New Hope, episode 4 after that, if you're following the timeline. The whole era there is one gigantic story of a master manipulation Hegelian dialectic that is multi-layered, very complex plot with subplots, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. So it's really well told, and when you get into the Clone Wars, you will be drawn into the story, and even though you know the outcome, you get caught up in kind of rooting for the Republic, you're rooting for the Republic, you're turned off by the Separatists, and all the elements that are in the prequels and the Clone Wars are reflected in our reality, especially in 2020. Let me break down for you this way. Okay, let's start with the Separatists. They would be like the libtards in America, or the Democrats. They are also connected to, like, they have the battle droids, which are these really dumb droids that are just expendable assets. There are really a lot of them. They are the sheeple. They are the Antifa. They're the ones that can be eliminated later. There's a critical point in the third prequel, Revenge of the Sith. Once Emperor Palpatine is seizing power, once they get to Order 66, which is where the Order followers, which would be the Republic troopers, turn on the Jedi, which would be the people that think they know what's going on, they think they're on the side of freedom, they think they're peacekeepers. The Jedi, which are like the Republicans, they're kind of arrogant, they don't really know what's going on, they think they do, they think they're fighting for freedom, but they're not. And the Order followers get turned on them. Right? So you have the Republic troopers, which are the Order followers, the government's agents. You have the battle droids, which are like Antifa and anybody in that kind of movement over there on the left. You have the Separatists versus the Republic, which is a totally shammed up war or division caused in the Star Wars galaxy, all manipulated by the same psychos in charge behind the scenes. You have this Chancellor Palpatine, before he becomes Emperor Palpatine. He seems like, like the guy that's leading the way to freedom, and then you have it all unravel at the end. And the empire rises, right? Darkness takes over, and not just darkness, but actual evil takes over. And the empire is up, and tyranny reigns over the galaxy, and that's the way it is. Now, there's a scene in the third prequel movie, Revenge of the Sith, where after Emperor Palpatine, once he's, transitions from Chancellor to Emperor, gives Order 66, and then he also does some other things. He does some very critical things. He orders the battle droids to be shut down. Now, if you know your history, you know that groups like Antifa are used like in all kinds of manner where this repeats over and over in history. They're the useful idiots. They're used by the people in charge to create the chaos, to create the riots, to create the disruption, so that they can then seize power, and then once they do that, those useful idiots are eliminated. Now, in real life, they're people, and they're killed. In Star Wars, it's a great metaphor to use dumb droids that are then just ordered to be shut down because they're no longer needed. Now, the Second thing that Emperor Palpatine does in Revenge of the Sith is he's in control and he's turned Anakin Skywalker to the dark side and becomes Darth Vader. And this is before he gets mangled and has to have a respirator and his new suit, while he still looks like Anakin, just with, the dark side of the Force. Does that thing to Jedi's eyes when they turn to the dark side. He sends him off to kill the children of the Jedi Temple, the younglings, as they call them, the future Jedis, and he also sends him to kill all of the separatist leaders. They have to be eliminated because they're also useful idiots. The clone troopers, it's very interesting. So in the movies, you really don't get a true sense of the depth of the deception. It isn't until you watch the Clone Wars that you can see not only the basically the creation of this clone trooper army, which essentially you come off seeing as basically they're slaves of the Republic. There's even an episode in the Clone Wars, I think, titled "Slaves of the Republic," and they're basically conditioned order followers. Now these people all think they're on the good side. They think they're the heroes. They have that yell for the Republic, and they're out there and they're following orders. And the Jedi, who say they're keepers of the peace, but are really arrogant and ignorant, and they don't want to, and they think they know a lot, but it isn't until you watch the Clone Wars that you get a true sense of just how much they don't know, how the Jedi religion in Star Wars, and how it's revealed that they really were lacking in understanding the true nature of the Force and in all kinds of things. There's a series of episodes toward the end of the Clone Wars series where Mace Windu and Yoda, where they finally figure out that they are actually completely wrong even about the afterlife. That they have the Jedis believe that you just get reabsorbed into the Force, that your individuality goes away, and then Yoda gets confronted by these Force type spirits that take him on a basically sort of like a wild ride, Scrooge style, through different series of events. Showing him that he really doesn't know as much as he thinks he does, and they challenge him and make him realize that you can be individual in the afterlife. You can maintain your individuality. So they're ignorant even of their own thousands of years of religion. Sound familiar? And they don't even understand, the true nature of whatever they're channeling through this Force in the Star Wars fiction. Which, if you think about it, that is really what's going on in our world. It's fiction that George Lucas, I don't even think, intended it to show us all this. I think he was just making a story. I'm not even sure that he was doing like what they call revelation of the method. But really, these people that entertain us from professional Hollywood, they definitely want to show you what they want to do. And they usually are in a very confused state where they are the actual villains in their own stories and they don't even realize it. They think they're the good guys. It's a very confusing world on Earth, especially in this era, where you have access to all kinds of information, but you have people out there that they're so caught up in their own egos, their own biases. When I started my journey of investigation and the Overwatch project and the Overwatch channel on YouTube was the first thing that I did before overwatchproject.com, which I put up as a sort of like a library of knowledge for people to access for absolutely free. I don't sell anything. Everything's free. I have just want to share information with people that have the same interest that I do. And, the first thing I had to do was confront the fact that I was my own worst enemy. Once I realized that I was arguing with myself to maintain worldviews that I had been programmed to believe that conflicted with the totality of information I was looking at, I had to shed religious stuff that I was programmed with, political stuff that I was programmed with. I was once part of this left-right paradigm we have here in the United States. And in whatever country you're at, it's whatever version they have for you. It's like, choose this side or that side. But really, both sides always go to the same place. And you just don't realize it. One takes you there a little slower. One takes you there faster. They're both going to the same place. I mean, in America, we have a huge, big deal right now. We have an absolutely blatant revelation of the method. And I think this is done to make you feel powerless. This is where they show you out in the open, not even in fiction. I mean, on the regular news, if you're paying attention, totally out in public, totally in the open, blatant stuff like complete election fraud. So it turns out your vote really didn't matter. If you haven't figured it out already, it's all out in the open, right? Statistics, how to lie with statistics. One of the things I'm gonna put up these links in. Hopefully the show notes I can get them copied and pasted in there. So I'm going to put up a link to overwatchproject.com. I'm going to put up a link from starwars.com to Clone Wars, Esoteric Awakening, the sociopath, empath, apath triad explained. I'm going to put up that article. I'm going to put up the Hegelian dialectic article that actually uses the Star Wars story as an example. And then several BitChute videos. One of them is from the Hexagod channel on BitChute that is directly responsible, I think, for the creation of BitChute. I'm pretty sure he was he's the basis of the BitChute channel. And his video, they want Section 230 removed because they don't want us speaking. I've been promoting that on my Minds channel, on my Minds blog. The reason that that's important, and it was really obvious to me when we had this whole thing with Trump here, he's like got huge following. The dialectic here is on steroids in America. You have this one super excited side on the Trump side, then you have these ultra violent, hyper emotional leftists, and it's just complete and utter chaos. And it's like toward the end of the Clone Wars, right before they issue Order 66, before anybody realizes what the hell's going on. But, I mean, it does take a lot of cognitive dissonance in people you have to, if you're a Trump super fan, you do have to kind of like brush off the fact that, that's where we're really getting the vaccines from. That's where, crazy shit like let's remove Section 230 is being suggested. Section 230 should not be removed. It is what protects BitChute and Library and Float and Rumble and whatever else you happen to be on. These little guys are protected because of Section 230. Removing Section 230 would only hurt BitChute, and it would totally help the people who want to do censorship anyway. Isn't that obvious? Can you not see that? So you have to have a lot of cognitive dissonance to listen to somebody that you think is fighting for your freedom come up with an idea that we should remove Section 230. Not good. And then I'm going to put up a video from this guy Anomaly. He's pretty popular. He is, got his religious stuff going on. And my thing is, even if you see all the stuff I put up on Minds, please don't think that I agree with all these people. may agree with half of what they say. I see a lot of people as being caught up in their own little cognitive confusions, and they seem to understand cognitive dissonance in one place, but they don't understand it in another place. And I went through this in my own mind and through many years of research, combating it in myself. So I understand where they're coming from. But it doesn't mean that these people aren't still valuable. They have really good information at times. So like Anomaly has this video. I read this book Bill Gates told me to. It's about how to lie with statistics. And that's what I'm talking about. It's not even that they're not even lying. It's like if you pay attention to what they're telling you, if you pay attention to the information they're giving you, and then you pay attention to what they're telling you to do, how to act, how to behave, you'll be like, if you actually aren't a sheeple, you're not one of the psychopaths promoting this nonsense, you're standing there going, none of this makes any sense. This whole pandemic makes no sense because I have a brain and I can process information in a logical way, and what I'm being told to do and how I'm being told to act doesn't make any sense for what they're telling me the information is about what's going on. How to Lie with Statistics is a book that is on Bill Gates' desk. You can see it in a picture here, a still shot on Anomaly's video. I'm also going to put a link to Sophia Di Gregorio's BitChute channel. The occult is something that is hidden. And the reason that it's hidden is because, especially in today's world, a lot of religious effort has been made. There's religions and then there's materialism. So religions, the bulk of the major religions in the world try to make you afraid of empowering yourself and learning about your own consciousness and how consciousness works and magic and witchcraft and all this other stuff. When in fact, those things are not actually evil. It's just they don't want you spiritually empowered. So they have to keep you literally sheep, which is one of the major religions, the biggest religion in the entire world, literally tells their congregation that they're sheep. And, they have things in their holy books, like they have, if you find a witch, kill her or him. This is all done to depower you, because the people running this place are completely using that too. There's no doubt about it. A lot of these sheeple look like they're under some kind of magical hypnosis or some kind of spell. They are truly mindless. I mean, if you do engage them in intellectual conversation, it is literally like you're talking to someone in a sleeping state. It's really, really bizarre. And no amount of factual information that you can take them to from official websites that they are told to and they are programmed to believe are telling them the truth. You can take them to the official CDC, FDA, whatever sites, read official documents from what they think are official sources. The information there will contradict what they believe, and they still will act as if they just have like this bizarre, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like they hear what you're saying, but they're not going to listen to any of it because that's not what they've been told to act like. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but I did want to put up her channel because she gives away a lot of esoteric information, and it's important stuff, and it doesn't hurt to listen. I also found, I'm not going to put the link down because I already created the show notes and they have to be copy and pasted, and I just thought of it right now on the fly. But there is a YouTube channel. I couldn't find it on BitChute yet, so I'm hoping that this person, eventually goes to BitChute. But you can easily find it by typing in DRJ Radio Live. That's all one word, no spaces. As Dr. J Radio Live. This YouTube channel has a tremendous amount of interviews with all kinds of fascinating people, and it's very interesting because we're also dealing with this whole UFO phenomena that's coming out now, like on the Jerusalem Post with the ex-Israeli Space Force guy saying that, we have like this connection to some Galaxy Federation nonsense. Because you really have to be concerned that they could be pulling off one day in the future some type of fake alien invasion. Even as far back as Reagan, that was hinted at. So you might want to study up on what's going on in the world of ufology, and this is an interesting channel. It has all kinds of diverse interviews on there. And it's something that I really can't subscribe to, a Galactic Federation, and primarily because, on one hand, obviously, as I've told you before in earlier videos, one of the theories I subscribe to, because it fits a lot of the totality information, or it fits the totality information available about human beings and our origins, is that we were genetically engineered by some entity or entities for the purpose of slave labor. And that's why we have this like authority obedient type of behavior that allows us to be so easily enslaved. And so it's kind of like, all right, there were some bad aliens or little g gods that fucked with life on Earth a long time ago, made humans, and did a shitty job doing it. Also, it's hard to believe that there would be a Galactic Federation, because I would have to think that some aliens, if they were actually more advanced than we are, would not have a fucking government with taxes and all that other shit. They would be able to have a civil society without government slavery, right? So I would hope somewhere in a galaxy there's something like that. But it's beside the point. So the whole thing is that in Star Wars, in the Clone Wars especially, not only can you be pulled into the story, but even though you know the outcome, this is why it's so critical. Even though you know the outcome, you already know the ending, you already know the secret plot that's underfoot. There's no denying it. You're like watching it as like a time traveler. You're like watching a story from like the point of view of like a deity or something, where you can observe everything, know everything. At the same time, you can even fool yourself in the middle of the Clone Wars and root for the Republic, which is all a scam. And if that is possible, that even if you know what's going on, you can still be fooled, just look at our world today and how many people are fooled by stuff and how deep that fooled state goes. And can you even blame them because they cannot see the ending? People like you and me, if you're one of my frequent listeners, you can see the ending, but they cannot see the ending. So, and if you never watched the Clone Wars, just go watch it wherever you can get it from, because you'll see what I'm talking about. It is the perfect fictional depiction, a metaphor for Hegelian dialectic and psychopathic manipulation ever. It even has episodes that, like a couple of the clone troopers figure out what's going on. Of course, they get killed before they can tell anybody. It has lots of depth and spiritual stuff. And it isn't until season 3, episode 6 of Star Wars Rebels, episode called The Last Battle. The young Ezra Bridger, which is a young new Jedi in training, along with Rex, who's a clone trooper from the Clone Wars, but now he's an older guy in Star Wars Rebels, and he joins the rebellion. They're on a planet where they find battle droids that did not deactivate themselves. The battle droid, the intelligence droid or tactical droid, thought it was a Republic trick, so he ignored Emperor Palpatine's instructions to turn off. These battle droids, then confronted with these old clone troopers, kind of faced off against each other, and Ezra Bridger, in this very powerful scene, makes them both realize for the first time, because they still did not realize, Rex, which is a main character in the Clone Wars, still hadn't figured it out. And then Ezra Bridger asked him, wait a minute, if you Republic troopers were retired, and then, the Empire replaced you with stormtroopers, and the battle droids were shut down, who won your war? Because neither one of those two sides won. And then that's when it isn't until the Star Wars Rebels, years, this whole storyline takes place over decades. And that's why it's so good, because it totally shows you the slow process of what's going on and how truly manipulative it is and how psychopathic it is. It's fucking amazing to watch. But it isn't until Rex is an old guy that he finally realizes, thanks to Ezra's comment, that it was all set up. The whole battle was never meant to be won the way that they thought. Both sides thought they were fighting tyranny. If you take a look of the hyper-emotional leftists in America, they think they're fighting tyranny. And the Republicans and conservative types, they think they're fighting tyranny. It really is a mirror of the Clone Wars, in a sense. Although it would be much cooler to live in the Star Wars universe. Then you have the Force itself, which seems to be duality on steroids, which, it really is not a benevolent, spiritual entity in Star Wars galaxy. When you think about it, it's more of a parasitic thing. It kind of causes constant conflict. Star Wars, galaxy is always going to be in Star Wars because there's the dark side and the light side, and they're both trying to cancel each other out, even though they're the same entity. It's the same thing. It sounds very familiar, like some of the big religions today. They have the same kind of conflict going on. It's in their storytelling. Well, I want to kind of wrap things up now. I'm going to try to. Hopefully, the show notes will transfer over flawlessly, I hope. In the meantime, if you haven't seen what I'm talking about, go check it out. If you have, maybe you want to rewatch it with a new perspective. And thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to go to overwatchproject.com. Don't forget to sign up for BitChute. And if you can, help protect Section 230, because while we still actually have to deal with government tards, somehow we have to try to protect these outfits, because otherwise you'll have to. We'll still figure out a way around it. If you listen to Hexagod's podcast about Section 230, you'll see what I'm talking about. I think he explains it perfectly. All right. Take care. Have a good day, good night, whenever you happen to be listening to this, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.